So, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the movie that's made up of Marvel's C and D-list leftovers, the one that everyone dragged through the dirt during its marketing, is actually good? Wow. An MCU movie that didn't make me want to claw my eyes out. Thunderbolts is a decent, well-made film. Looks like I was wrong all along. Guess I'll have to swallow my pride and admit that my instincts were totally off. Is what I would say if I'd completely lost my mind. Alright, let's cut to the chase and wrap this up early. Yes, Thunderbolts asterisk is bad. It's not horrendous or anything. It's simply not good, and I'm so confused as to why so many people have decided that out of all of the slop that's been forced down our throats these past couple of years, this is the good one. This kind of feels like Flash all over again, where the marketing is saying, believe the hype is real. But this time around, people are just taking the bait and accepting this, saying, oh yeah, it's goated. Did Marvel pay all of you to say this? Are y'all being held at gunpoint? I'm genuinely concerned. This movie's main antagonist is one of the most insufferable characters in the MCU, not only because she's given terrible dialogue, but this terrible dialogue is coming out of the mouth of a terrible actress. Seriously, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine is just your cookie-cutter government corporate villain that's hiding a bunch of illegal secret projects that are now under investigation because she's being impeached. Her courtroom scenes are also terribly uninspired, since it's desperately trying to recapture that magic of the courtroom scenes in Iron Man 2, where Tony Stark does Tony Stark stuff. Flirting versus harassment type deal, you know what I'm saying?
Another thing that happens during this courtroom scene is that she says that there's no more heroes to protect Earth. And I completely agree with her. There's absolutely no one on Earth that could ever protect us from anything at all. Nope, no heroes at all. Just want to make sure that it's clear that there are 0 heroes on Earth to save us. Anyway, did you guys know Captain Marvel's in Louisiana?
Eventually, Valentina tells Yelena, Ghost, US Agent, and Taskmaster all to go to this vault in an elaborate scheme to get them all killed to tie up some loose ends so she doesn't get impeached. But obviously, these super soldiers and assassins put 2 and 2 together pretty quickly and hatch a plan to get out as soon as possible. The only casualty in this incident was Taskmaster, because she took her sweet time aura farming walking up to John and got shot in the head by Ghost. Yeah, you heard me right. The assassin, trained to be one of the most efficient killers on the planet, and even gave Black Widow a run for her money, is killed because we need some hype moments and aura. And they also use her death as a joke, so there's an extra nail in the coffin. Imagine trying to do character development. Do you remember when people did that? Anyway, Bob is also here, and they're all getting out of the incinerator. Valentina is then surprised that these super assassins got out because she thought they were stupid and losers, and now she's angry. Honestly, I didn't know what she was expecting, considering these are some of the most highly trained killers on the planet. She may be right in calling them losers, but they're not stupid. Who is stupid is whoever invented this vault and put the power source to the anti-ghost ray on the inside of the vault. That's pretty convenient. Who built this? They now have to get out of the vault that Valentina placed an entire SWAT team around. Skipping a bunch of fighting and bad teamwork, they escape only because Bob sacrificed himself as a distraction. Except JK, because he's Century. Oh, Century, you're such a waste of time. Century, aka Bob, was a guy with a rough past and came across a doctor who told him about this medical program that promised greatness and power. So he volunteered into this, and the movie never shows us any of what the doctors actually do to Bob to give him his powers. It might be a good idea to establish this and show this trauma that Bob went through, because Bob is the only one to survive this procedure. Surely we get to see how he survived, right? Whatever, we forgot. We're gonna hide behind ambiguity because that is good writing. Anyway, Bob is experimented on and he ends up being the only test subject that survives this project, which is why he ends up in this vault. The funny thing about Century is that Valentina treats it as if it's her ticket out of being impeached, even though there's still proof of her breaking the law. And the even funnier thing is that she completely forgets Bob exists. You would think that since Valentina cares so much about the Century project, after finding out Bob is alive, she would have been incredibly involved in the project during its run, checking on patients, talking with doctors about the improvements to the project. And honestly, even if she wasn't involved, someone would have told her about Bob surviving. Well, I'm just stupid for wanting some character consistency, because apparently she didn't care up until this point. Like, I'm sorry, she is head of the CIA and is funding the project. If there's one person who's going to find out about someone who survived the medical procedure, it would be her. But sure, let's just say she forgot or something, I don't know. But anyway, once Bob passes out from flying, Valentina takes him into custody because she thinks she can make him her superhero. Because she thinks she can manipulate him because he's vulnerable. The only reason Valentina thinks she can get away with it is because everyone around her is stupid enough to buy into it. It's almost like in order to make her seem intelligent, they made everyone around her stupid. Anyway, even though it's insane that she thinks she can keep a mental leash on Sentry, aka the most powerful being on Earth now, it's all fine because she has a kill switch, in which she will definitely use more than once. The Thunderbolts then show up to Avengers Tower and fight Sentry, since he's with Valentina now and he absolutely wipes the floor with them. I wonder if they'll keep this power level consistent. A funny thing about this fight is that Bob doesn't want to kill them and is actively controlling his powers in order to spare them. But when Bucky starts to shoot at him, he doesn't care about not killing anyone anymore and effectively shoots them back at him at full speed. This is a reference to how the movie doesn't care about Bucky's characterization at all. Once the Thunderbolts leave because they can't fight him, Valentina and Bob have a little chat where Bob realizes pretty quickly that Val is trying to manipulate him, and then tries to kill her or intimidate her or something. I'm not actually quite sure what he's trying to do here, but then it's all fine because Val's assistant Mel comes out with the kill switch that will definitely be used more than once in this movie. Val and Mel then leave, but then a spooky shadow takes over the body of Bob. Later, after a decent scene from Yelena and Alexei, everyone looks up to the sky to see the void, and Valentina then pulls out that good old trusty kill switch, right? Right? Wrong! We just forgot about that again. Remember, guys, this is the good one. I'm gonna skip a bit of the movie because there's a bunch of lazy flashback rooms and then the team gets back together in the void and then they go fight the void person with Bob. You'd think that because they got completely wiped out last time that surely the same thing happens this time, right? Wrong. Because this time we have the power of friendship. Yippee! But Andrew, the Thunderbolts defeat Void by helping Bob regain control of his mind and body. It's all about fighting inner conflict because the movie is aware that it's impossible for them to defeat him through sheer force. Like how Alexei and Yelena break out of the Void's traps with sheer force. Like how Yelena is dodging and weaving all of Void's attacks with sheer force. Like how they prevent Bob from punching the Void with sheer force. How they pull Bob away from the Void and out of his trap with sheer force. Assuming that the Void and Sentry have the same powers, given that they can do very similar things like flying, using the Force, and have incredible invincibility, and are also the hosts of the same body, you would think that the Void would do literally anything to stop them from touching Bob, like force grabbing them and throwing them back into their trauma rooms, or creating more traps, or making the room longer, like he's shown to be able to do. I'd even argue that the Void is even stronger than Bob, considering that the first fight we're told that Bob is an amateur when it comes to these powers, but the Void seems way more of a master of these abilities based off of everything that he does in the final battle. But no, I guess he forgot how to do all that. Or the Thunderbolts are just too good at dodging his force abilities. And as soon as they got close to Bob, the Void just forgot how to do the throwing thing. I don't know. I don't care. Also, depending on how you interpret this messed up timeline, this either happens during or after Daredevil Born Again. And if it happened during Born Again, then the obvious question is why did we see none of this fallout? But if it happened after, then why aren't we seeing anything to do with Wilson Fisk's Safer Streets initiative, where he made all vigilante activity completely illegal? And I'd argue that the Thunderbolts are the most vigilante a vigilante has ever vigilanted, and I don't know why we're not seeing those Punisher cops running around to see what's up. Oh, trauma rooms, that's right, I forgot about those. So when Yelena decides to go through the trauma rooms to find Bob, she goes through 3 rooms before finding Bob, and then they talk about what they're gonna do, and then boom, the rest of the Thunderbolts show up. And at first you're probably like, wow, what kind of character exploration could you do with these trauma rooms, specifically with this group of people? That would be really cool. Well, you forgot, because this is Marvel, and we don't do that here. God, imagine what you could do with Bucky. But nah, we gotta turn his trauma into a joke, because that's funnier.
What did you see? Are you okay?
Oh, I'm fine. I have a great past, so I'm totally fine. Yeah.
But Andrew, they already resolved all his trauma in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I mean, sure, they technically did, but I wouldn't call it well written. But even if we just assume that they did it in that show, and did happen beyond one scene in Wakanda, there's still a lot you can do with him in this movie. Imagine the juxtaposition of Yelena being someone who hasn't moved past her trauma, and Bucky who has. What would he do in these rooms? Sure, it'd still affect him pretty badly, but he's equipped himself with the right mindset to move past it. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I think Bucky might might be a better fit to help Bob than Yelena. But let's face it, making a movie with more than one protagonist is impossible, and has never been done before. The fact of the matter is that this is not a Thunderbolts movie. It's a Yelena and sometimes Alexei movie. Because if you came here looking for cool character development for Walker, Ghost, Taskmaster, or Bucky Barnes, you'd be sadly disappointed. John Walker isn't really given much to do, and it's pretty disappointing because they set up some pretty interesting stuff with him in the first act when he touches Bob and we see his own trauma room, and one of his most traumatic moments is babysitting his child. Definitely. Absolutely nothing to do with his military life overseas or losing his best friend or anything. No, that was a cakewalk for him. Barely an inconvenience. But in all seriousness, the scene sets up the idea that he's kind of a jerk. He yelled at his wife about watching the baby. That's not very nice. It also sets him up as seeing himself as a public embarrassment to his country. Very sad indeed. You'd think they'd want to do something with that. Nope. They just make it another joke.
Yeah, this place is messed up.
But don't worry, by the end of the movie, he decides to be nice to Bob instead of being mean. Character development. Also, I would like to point out that John is not nearly this much of a jerk in Falcon and a Winter Soldier. In the show, he's actually somewhat of a good guy, and that's because the writers accidentally made him a good guy, and this movie needs to make him bad. And the way this movie does it is by completely ignoring his character arc in the show and continues to misrepresent what happened in the show. In the vault scene, they refer to the guy Walker killed as innocent, which, if you have a brain, you know is a complete lie. This guy is a super soldier terrorist who aided in multiple terrorist attacks and also aided in the murder of Lamar Hoskins. This man is not innocent. Stop trying to make Walker a bad guy. But Andrew, that's coming all from the public opinion. Yeah, the public opinion that would have understood that he was a part of a terrorist organization and assisted in the murder of Lamar, because it would have been in every report under the sun given the reports of Walker and their mission objectives beforehand. Saying that the public wouldn't have been informed of this is just such a leap in logic. Are we now saying that Fisk being mayor is completely fine now because public perception of him ignored the reports? Are you seriously gonna argue this? Try again. John Walker also starts advocating to leave Bob behind, aka a completely innocent man, and leave him for dead. I do not believe that Walker would do that. Sorry, movie. You're gonna have to do better. I'm not talking about Ghost because her only trait in this movie is being reliable sometimes and is British and killed Taskmaster. Actually, psych, because there are problems with her character if we acknowledge the existence of the other movies, and we definitely are doing that. So in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ghost starts off as a criminal because that's what she needs to do in order to survive. But throughout the movie, Hank and Scott track her down so she doesn't have to die. And her arc in the movie is that she realizes that she doesn't have to fight to survive, and there are people out there to help you when you need it. But apparently we forgot about that because Hank and Scott and the rest of the Ant-Man gang completely forgot that she exists and didn't help her, and she returned to a life of crime. Remember, this is one of the good ones. Also, according to the post-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ghost never got the energy that she needed in order to save herself from having her body tear itself apart. So shouldn't she be dead at this point? Or did we forget again? I want to circle back to Bucky because there's a lot of stuff to do with his character that I don't think align at all with what he would do. First off, he's a congressman, which, okay, I'm not sure if he would do that or be interested in politics at all, and this movie doesn't know what to do with him either. They kind of just put him there and then make some jokes about it. Character development. Bucky's whole plan is to take down Valentina because he knows that she's guilty, and when the system is too slow for his liking, he decides to take it in his own hands, and it works for the most part. He gets Val's assistant to help him, and he got the Thunderbolts together. And by the end, he takes down the Void with the team and is ready to send Val to prison. But as soon as they try to do this, she announces that the Thunderbolts are actually the new Avengers. Yes, I'm not kidding. Yelena whispers over Val's shoulder and says, "We own you now." And I'm not sure Bucky would be okay with any of this. He's got all the proof he needs to send her to prison, and he would be hellbent to do so considering what she did to Bob. And I don't know if you know this, but Bucky's pretty opinionated on the topics of illegal experimentation on people to make super soldiers. So no, I do not believe that he would be on this new team. To build off this, in the post-credit scene, Bucky says he talked to Sam about this, and apparently he's not a fan of this new team. And if there's anyone who can convince Bucky that something might not be right, it's Sam. Not only because Sam would bring up the many obvious reasons as to why it's not a good team, but also because Bucky really trusts Sam, and if there's anyone that he's going to be loyal to and fight with, it is Sam. Honestly, I'm pretty sure Bucky would rather fight with Sam than any of these guys. Also, another thing that the post-credit scene does is tell us that Sam owns the copyright to the name Avengers. Okay. How? Because if anyone owned the copyright, it would have been either the government or Stark after the termination of S.H.I.E.L.D. And if it was Stark, you're telling me that he didn't give him any money or funds to help him with his family, but instead gave him the copyright to the name Avengers. And if that's the case, why didn't Sam make any money off of the IP by merchandising it? This whole thing is so stupid. The scene continues and confirms that the Fantastic Four are on their way from a spaceship, yada yada yada, Doctor Doom, Avengers Doomsday, it's gonna be cinema. That's pretty much it other than Yelena and Alexei, but I'm gonna talk about Alexei first because he's great. Red Guardian is probably the most enjoyable thing about this movie. You can tell David Harbour really enjoys playing this character and almost every joke lands with him. Even when there's something that's stupid in the movie or there's a contrivance surrounding his existence, I can't hate him. We love Alexei. But since we're being objective losers here, I might as well point out some contrivances here. So him living in Washington is pretty contrived, considering that the last time we saw him in the MCU was when he was broken out of a Russian prison and on the run from the Russian government, because I'm not buying that the Russian government would let him just roam free. He is a Russian super soldier. I'm pretty sure they're gonna want to know where he is and want him in their custody. And it's not like he's trying to hide either. His limo service is called Red Guardian Limo Service. He does not care about hiding his identity. Also, his existence in the story beyond this point is also contrived. So after Val goes through with burning the vault room, they're talking to Mel about what they're going to do afterwards in the limo, and as soon as they leave, it's revealed that Alexei is their driver. So a couple of things here. I don't believe that Valentina would just hire some random limo driver, especially an ex-Russian super soldier, and then proceed to talk about highly classified and incriminating information out in the open for him to hear. Val is the head of the CIA. She would have her own driver that would be vetted to guarantee that no information gets leaked. And if for some reason that driver is out of commission, she would have a second one. And also after this, the next time we see Alexei, he shows up at the vault to help Yelena escape. But neither Val or Mel never said the address or coordinates out loud in the limo. So how is he here? I guess there's only one vault in the middle of the desert in the MCU, so sure, whatever. I'm not even sure if Alexei would even be here at this time, because the time it would take the Red Guardian to drive all the way over here into the desert would take at least 24 hours. And if your defense is that he drove really fast, I would like to point you to the joke that explicitly pokes fun at the idea that Red Guardian's limo is slow. Alright, let's go to Yelena. Yelena is another one that feels slightly out of character in this movie because based on how she acts in Hawkeye, she doesn't seem like someone who's going to be talking about her emotions with random people. But whatever, I guess we need her to do this to solidify the plot. If anything, I'd argue that she's inconsistently characterized in this movie. When she talks to Alexei, she's pretty defensive about references to her sister and her past. And if this idea was consistent, I would argue that when Bob gets in her head during the vault escape, she would be pretty upset if this guy just showed up in her head. At the very least, she would be way more concerned than she seems to be. But moving on to the theme of the movie, the shallow theme explored is the idea of being a loser, depression, and the call of the void. The way the story's dialogue is written leaves very little room for nuance. Classic problems of overt, over-expository dialogue telling us exactly how characters feel at any given moment, and on top of this, you have the classic case of overbearing music that double downs on the vibes of the movie. There is only one scene that I could say that's good in regards to solidifying the theme of the movie, and that is the conversation between Yelena and Alexei. While not being anything particularly breathtaking or inspiring, it is a good scene that's well acted out and explores the theme properly. And it's also one of the few scenes in the entire franchise where Alexei being a father is not made a joke. Everything else is so contrived with every other character. I don't know how Ghost relates to this. Bob is just some random guy they met. Walker is a jerk. Bucky gets nothing. Actually, Alexei can do nothing wrong. We love him. This movie might be the first project in the MCU that makes the bad things even worse. Ghost decides to become a good guy and doesn't have to be a criminal in order to survive? Never mind, we forgot. Walker had a redemption arc about how saving people in danger is more important than getting revenge and was actually a decent person? Never mind, we forgot. Alexei is on the run from the Russian government for escaping prison? Never mind, we forgot. Taskmaster has the idea of redemption and any character arc at all behind her in regards to the end of Black Widow? never mind, we forgot. I would like to reiterate, besides Bucky, none of these characters are from good movies or shows, but I still expect the movie to treat them with any level of respect when it comes to keeping these characters consistent. And to talk about the main theme again, the reason the main themes of mental illness feel so substanceless is because this cast of characters lacks so much depth, both in their own projects and in this one. On top of this, the movie goes out of its way to avoid trying to do anything with any character except Yelena. They could have shown us Walker in his trauma rooms, but they didn't. They could have shown us Ghost in her trauma rooms, but they didn't. They could have shown Bucky in his trauma rooms, but they didn't. They could have shown Alexei in his trauma rooms, but they didn't. All in service of a surface level character analysis of a Marvel C-lister. And I don't know about you, but I don't consider that good writing.